A new study has come out detailing how the rich have gotten richer and the poor have gotten poorer since the global collapse of capitalism in 2008. It says corporate profits, the profits of the capitalist, the businessman, are up. They have fully recovered and in fact are higher than where they were before the recession actually began, while workers' wages are down 1.2% from 2007. So workers have not recovered at all. There has been no recovery for us, the working class. The capitalist class, however, has done swimmingly well. Now, the study was put out by the Economic Policy Institute and also does give some data on some other facts as well. Those at the top are seeing their wages rebound quite strongly in the recovery, following a 15.6% decline from 2007 to 2009. Real annual wages of the top 1% of earners grew 8.2% from 2009 to 2011. The real annual wage of the bottom 90% have continued to decline in the recovery, eroding 1.2% between 2009 and 2011. Wage inequality grew substantially over 1979 to 2007. Lessened in 07-09 downturn and began expanding again in the 09-2011 recovery. Trends over the next few years will determine whether wage inequality returns to or exceeds the heights reached at 2007 or 2000, or simply remain far higher than any time in the 1980s and 1990s. Given the strong stock market recovery and wage growth at the top 1%'s overall income, which includes wages, capital gains, and other returns of financial assets, probably grew strongly in 2011, thereby increasing income inequality. Now, after the global collapse of capitalism, the capitalist class, surprise, surprise, their recovery was quick, and it furnished them quite well. They recovered very, very quickly from the entire global downturn, while the rest of us remained pretty much where we are and continued to sink even further. We lost a lot. They lost, but they recovered quickly and are now sitting in a better position from when they once were. This table presents the growth of real inflation-adjusted annual wages during the downturn from 2007 to 2009, the recovery from 2009 to 2011, and the entire period from 2007 to 2011. It also presents trends from 2010 to 2011. This table also shows wage growth from the top 1% of wage earners, the next 4%, the 95th to the 99th percentiles, the next 5%, the 90th to 95 percentiles, and the bottom 90%. This data shows an examination of how high wage and very high wage earners fared relative to the vast majority during the downturn and the recovery so far. The reason why the 1% fell so much was because a lot of what it is that they hold in compensation for their job is realized stock options. They hold stock in things. So obviously when the recession hits and the stock market massively declines as a result of the global collapse, so does the value of what it is they have. In fact, the S&P index fell 38% from 2007 to 2009. So the stock market vastly affects what it is that they hold and why there was such a huge crash for them. Now, correspondingly, as the stock market rebounded, so did the value of what it is they have. So did the returns on what it is they have by holding that stock. Now, their annual wages grew by 8.2% from 2009 to 2011. The S&P grew, of course, correspondingly 37.4% over the same period. Now, this shows that the earners of the 90th and 99% got growth in the recovery. So the top 10%, earners from the 90th and 99th percent got wage growth recovery and are the only wage earners to have wages higher in 2011 than 2007. In other words, those in the lower upper class or the upper middle class fared quite well because a lot of their wealth is still contained in somewhat of the same form. There's obviously not to the degree that it is that you find within the very top or the 1%. Now, the bottom 9%, the bottom 90%, which is, well, practically everybody watching this video, our earnings eroded 0.6% in the downturn and by a further 1.2% in the recovery. So the so-called recovery of capitalism, the recovery of the economy, We actually got even worse as a result. There should be no surprises. I mean, the economists everywhere, the right-wing bloggers, the right-wing economists spouting all this stuff about how if the upper class does well, then so does the rest of us. This whole terrible idea of the trickle-down economics, that if the upper class do well, then that will filter its way down through us to investments through the economy, and the entire mechanism of capitalism. Well, that's not true. It's not true. We have the data to prove that. And it's always been basically untrue. I mean, man, until there's enough of a destruction of capital for which investment to become profitable again, that kind of thing is not going to happen. So this is not what has happened here. There's not been the absolute massive destruction of capital as there was with, say, the Great Depression. So we can see here that this whole trickle-down thing is just completely untrue. Now, this is the very essence of capitalism. We have a class-based system that is based on wealth. They are the ones with the social power in the system. As they say, you vote with your dollars. They have billions of votes. We don't. So it should not be surprising in any way, shape, or form that these are the people who actually fared well with the recovery of the economy while we did not. We have a system based on where one class dominates another, and that class, as a result, ends up helping itself with, well, not caring at all what happens to the working class. I mean, this is completely predictable. This is capitalism in and of itself. This is a class-based system where one class gets over on another through whatever power mechanism it has, be that as like in a dictatorship where they control all the government institutions, or through the economy, by the virtue of having all the money and controlling the investments and means of production. Or as it is in reality, it's actually both that's held by the capitalist class. I mean, this completely, aside from completely disproving the fact that, disproving the whole trickle-down economics thing, this also presents us with a ton of evidence that Barack Obama is not a socialist. I mean, a lot of the stuff that's said about socialists, they want to take away from those who earn to give to those who don't earn. Well, could you please explain this? I mean, this is, if it's all about knocking down the rich and giving to the poor, this very, very terrible Robin Hood analogy that right-wingers like to use, please explain why the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer if Barack Obama is supposedly this Robin Hood socialist. Because it's just insane. He's not a socialist. He is not a communist. We have very clear proof that the so-called anti-big business Obama has done very, very well for making the rich richer and the poor poorer. Now, this is not unique to Obama. If Bush was still in office, we would have gotten the same thing. If McCain had gotten into office, it would have been the exact same thing. In fact, this actually would have been a lot worse. So this is not a result of this politician or that politician. This is the very nature of capitalism itself.